Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our student webinar. We're really pleased to have you on the webinar today, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching it back later. We're very, very glad of your company. My name is Rachel McSween and I work for IDP in the UK, and I'm delighted to be the host of the webinar today. We really want to spend our time focusing on reasons for studying in the UK and why you, if you're a student on the call, why you're making a good choice. And if you're somebody that helps students on the call, you can help them navigate their choices with their university studies. I think we are very aware you're about to make a huge life decision. And while we're confident that you're making the right one, we want to give you the chance to hear from other people about this too. We'll hear from a brilliant lineup of speakers. I'm about to tell you who they are, and they will introduce themselves as well. Some of whom are experts in education and policy, and some of whom are recent graduates of UK universities, which I think is a really great insight to have. So we're very grateful to be joined today by Sir Steve Smith, who is the UK Government's International Education Champion, and he'll come on shortly and tell you a bit about that role. James Bennett, who's the Head of Strategic Engagement at UKVI, so that's UK Visas and Immigration, a really critical part of the student journey. Katie Gordon, who is the Director of Careers, Employability and Enterprise at the University of Southampton, and you'll understand a bit more about Katie's role in helping students get work when they're here. We're also joined by Tahira Kamari, who is a recent graduate of the University of Reading, and Shreya Imandar, who is a recent graduate of the University of Leeds. And they're going to talk to you about their student experience as well and what they've learnt along the way. And we do want to leave time at the end for questions. So if you have questions, hopefully the Q&A and the chat box are enabled. Again, I'll rely on my colleagues to do that, and we'll come back to the questions at the end. Myself and my colleague Rohan, who is on the call, will take questions, and we'll ask our expert panel for their views on those questions. So please feel free as we go along to drop those in the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Sir Steve Smith, who's going to talk to us about why the UK is a great place to study. And Steve, I suppose a framing question is, for students who might be comparing the UK with other study destinations, what do you think makes the UK stand out at the moment?
Well, thanks very much indeed, Rachel, and good morning, everyone. I'm speaking to you from an unseasonably very hot Exeter in the southwest of Britain. It's a real pleasure to join you for this webinar, and I look forward to the questions. So I'm the UK Government's International Education Champion, which I've been for 6 years. Before that, I was Vice-Chancellor of the University of Exeter for 18 years. My job involves working with governments, institutions, sector leaders around the world to strengthen partnerships and promote the strength of the UK education system. I've led 27 missions abroad, and I've had over 500 meetings with overseas governments and stakeholders. So I've got a fair idea of how overseas stakeholders see the UK education system. Now, my role exists precisely because the British government believes that education connects people, it drives prosperity, and helps ultimately to shape a more peaceful, innovative, and inclusive world. And we think it matters more than ever that we can equip individuals to succeed, we can allow societies to prosper, and nations to build the partnerships they need. That's why the UK government is absolutely clear, and I'd like to say this very clearly: the UK will always welcome international students who meet the requirements to study here. That is the official UK government policy shared across all government departments. We welcome international students. We welcome the positive impact on the UK that on our society, our economy, that international students have. We value the enormous contribution, both culturally and academically, that international students make. They enrich our campus, as they broaden perspectives, they enhance the experience of all students from wherever they come. International students bring fresh, different ideas, they challenge our thinking, and they strengthen the UK's world-leading research base. So we've no doubt, and I've seen it with my own eyes, that international students contribute massively to the communities in which they live and study. In the last year, for which we have numbers, there were 685,000 international higher education students studying in the UK. We think that international experience, whether studying here or somewhere else, will help students create more global, culturally aware graduates. They'll start as students, but they'll become more globally aware, culturally aware graduates. These experiences, I think, involve improved outcomes, they boost employability, and they're really important for students from disadvantaged backgrounds because they help build bridges between nations across the society. UK universities work closely with employers to ensure that courses develop practical, job-ready skills, from critical thinking and digital capability to real-world experience through placement and industry partnerships. We're committed as a government to ensuring that students feel safe, that they're supported, that they're able to thrive with strong safeguards, dedicated pastoral support, and to live and work in communities that are inclusive. We know from the data that this is a mutually beneficial relationship for international students. The latest excellent IDP Emerging Futures research shows that the UK's global reputation for quality remains very strong, and students are confident that studying in the UK will give them the skills they need for future careers. So that's based, we think, on the quality that the sector has to offer, drawn from its long tradition of excellence and its cutting-edge innovation. You probably know the UK has a world-class higher education sector, with 4 universities in the top 10 and 17 in the top 100, alongside a wide array of very high-quality specialist institutions which can offer you a fulfilling experience from wherever you come and whatever subject you want to study. This applies across the UK, in all parts of the UK, from England, in London in England, to Edinburgh in Scotland, to Cardiff in Wales, to Belfast in Northern Ireland. We offer something for everyone. Our universities, I think, create world leaders, create people who go and do well in the world. The latest data shows that we've educated 58 of the current or recent world leaders. So students don't just enrich our campuses and forge lifelong friendships, but they go on to become global ambassadors for the UK in their careers. It's not just about rankings, though. It's not just about where we stand in the world rankings. The crucial thing is the quality of our teaching, the strength of our research, and the close links we have with industry and employers. We offer shorter, more intensive degrees that provide real value for money, and we provide qualifications that are recognized globally. We also provide, I think, a rich cultural experience, a diverse, inclusive society, and of course, access to one of the world's leading hubs for business, innovation, and creativity. We also have a very competitive post-study visa offer, which ensures that individuals are able to obtain employment in graduate level jobs and contribute to the UK's skills needs more quickly once they graduate. So our international education strategy is about sustainable recruitment, prioritizing student quality, student experience, and responsible recruitment. But having said all of which, rather than take my word for it, you should look at the evidence, and the evidence of what international students say about the UK compared to other possible destinations. Go and look, for example, at the International Student Barometer. It's a great source of neutral data. It asks 174,000 international students who study in 24 countries to evaluate their experience. For the UK, the results are very strong. The UK scores above the world average on quality, on value for money, on recommending their institution, and on the Net Promoter Score, which is a measure of satisfaction. On the cost of studying and living, the UK scores between 5 and 9 percentage points above its competitors. On careers support, it scores 9 percentage points above the benchmark. 97% of students feel safe on campus. Overall, the UK scores very strongly amongst the people that matter, namely those international students who study in the UK. My role then, and I'll come to my conclusion shortly, my role is to build international collaboration, to build partnerships, to expand the impact of our education sector around the world. And we think that partnerships should apply to individuals as much as to institutions. So the UK's decision to join the Erasmus Plus programme from 2027, the EU's flagship programme for education exchange and partnerships, is an important step. Erasmus Plus funds international mobility and partnerships across education, across training, across youth and sport. This will open doors for learners, educators, young people, and communities across the UK. And crucially, this includes international students. All students registered at a participating UK university and enroll in studies leading to a recognised degree or tertiary level qualification are eligible to participate in Erasmus Plus, including international students. Through Erasmus Plus, students can study, train, volunteer to do a work placement abroad, gaining valuable experience that supports their academic development and their future careers. So we'll continue to welcome international students whilst maintaining high standards, strong outcomes and responsible recruitment. For you, choosing where to study is all about your future. I can give you my word that in the UK, you'll gain a world-class education, you'll build globally valued skills and open doors to opportunities around the world. If you're looking for an education that truly sets you up for success, the UK is ready to welcome you. Do your research, look at the data, see what others say, but we and I stand ready to welcome you to studying in the UK. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. That's as impassioned as you've always been for the sector. And I think the students that we have or the graduates we have on the call today will certainly speak to some of the points you raised there around quality and what's been provided. I think those on the call will be, and we'll come back to you at the end, Steve. So thank you for that, but you're not off the hook quite yet. We'll be coming back for some questions to you. Everyone on the call will be aware of the UK Visas and Immigration, or UKVI as they're often called. And that is a critical part of the student journey, obviously being successful with your visa, and then also what happens after you finish your student visa, what can happen after that. So we really would love to hear more from James Bennett, who's joined us on the call. James is the head of strategic engagement at the UKVI, and he's going to talk to us about the UKVI and how it relates specifically to students. So this is going to be a really great presentation. So hopefully IDP colleagues can pull up the presentation on the screen that James can then speak to. I think here we are. So James, over to you, and thank you for persevering with the technical difficulties. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you. Yes, so hopefully you can hear me, and that's all coming through clearly. So yes, thank you, Rachel, for the introduction. I'm James Bennett. I'm Head of Strategic Engagement in Visa Status and Information. So that's the part of UK Visas and Immigration that deals with all of the different routes. So study is, of course, one of them, one of our major ones. And the presentation today really is to just go through some of the different elements in terms of a general overview, a bit about decision making, a bit about outcomes and so on, and then also some of the kind of so what goes into our decisions, and then something about as well some of the other routes that lead on after students, so after study, so graduate and skilled worker as well, and a little bit on key messages at the end. So yeah, there's there's your 8 boxes I'll be going through. So yes, the next slide on the general overview, and hopefully for some of you who have gone into looked at student visas and so on, the basics there, those first 4 bullets on what the general parameters are in terms of having been offered a place, enough money to support, speak, read, write English, and so on, and have consent from parents and so on. The eligibility in terms of confirmation of acceptance, so have a valid cause, be studying in an applicable course, and so on, through to paying the applicable fee, being able to speak English and so on. So relatively straightforward as far as our routes go. It's a course offer, and then you're meeting financial and maintenance requirements. And then once you are here, it's what you're able to do is of course study and then work in student unions or student affiliated areas of employment, and then you may have the up to 20 hours entitlement to work as well. they can vary depending on the endorsement that you have. What you can't do is claim public funds. You can't work in certain jobs, so they have to be prescribed jobs. You can't be self-employed or study at an academy or local authority funded school. They're the basic parameters of the study route. The next slide, please, will give you a bit of an overview of kind of our main nationalities that we see in terms of coming through. So India and China are always well at the top. Nigeria, Pakistan, and latterly Nepal. So they account for something like 75% of all of our total visa intake. Just turn around, I can see the slides a bit clearer now. Thank you. So yes, that's our nationality spread. China, India, Nigeria, very much the top three. Or for the next slide, please, just something on our intake. So we get about 400,000 a year. That hasn't changed much from the last financial year to this one. So 402,000 coming through. And then in terms of our turnarounds, standard for out of country is 15 working days, but the average turnaround in terms of decisions made was in 8 days, with our priorities done in 5. So standard visas get an almost kind of a double quick service versus the service standard. The next slide, please. So just a bit on our intake, as I say, that just kind of follows on from the graph that really shows how much of a kind of China and India heavy our intake is. Pakistan, Nigeria, and then a bit on the grant rate. So this is quite important to see in terms of just how those eligibility criteria I talked about in the first slide are met by prospective students. So in China, we've got a pretty much 100% issue rate. It's about 95% for India, and then it was 85 for Nigeria, and high again for Nepal. It's a bit lower for Pakistan, and that may be around kind of credibility issues or other conditions basically not met. So as you can see, very compliant route, very straightforward to evidence what you need to show to get a study visa. The next slide, please. This might be helpful just to look at how the refusals have gone. I've obviously referred to those, but those 6 refusal reasons, they're the 6 main ones that come up in terms of if application isn't successful, then it may be insufficient funds, whether your money's been in your account for a continuous 28 days and is sufficient for the full duration of your study. Credibility and or English language. I'll say a bit more about that in the next slide. So showing that and evidencing that. Failure to provide requested documents. So that's all the educational material as well as financial documents, and indeed financial evidence that you do or don't supply meeting the rules. So making sure that that's right. False documents, obviously anything that is not evidencing accurately your status, then that can be picked up and be a reason for refusal. And then some of the other documentary requirements like tuberculosis or English language test certificates, if there's any issue with those, that can be another reason for refusals. So they are the main 6. So I know that a lot of the visa test is around genuineness of whether you're a student or not. And so where we do have concerns, where there might be anything missing or anything that we'd like to ask further on, if we go to the next slide, we can ask for an interview. And over the last year, the last financial year, we've done just over 22,000 interviews. And to give a bit of context, again, emphasizing the compliance rate, that's just 6% of all applications. So that gives you a bit of an indication of just how compliant students are in terms of meeting the rules. However, where we do call people in for interview, that is usually quite clear in terms of so it's about a 50 or 45% where we find people aren't credible, and that might be for one of those or one or more of those refusal reasons I mentioned in the last slide. A few issues that have cropped up in terms of using scripts and reliance on AI to help you with your application. But yeah, as I say, the main headline there, it's 6%. So 94% of students do not come through to interview. And the next slide, very quickly, because we have been tackling some issues with less than 1%, less than 2%, sorry, of applications going on to claim asylum. So this is just to put in that we are mindful of that as another element of risk that we do build in. And usually they're built into the reasons for interviews, and that covers off asylum risk usually. But again, very small numbers in terms of the overall population, the overall proportion, and a lot less than there have been in previous years. The next slide, please. So once you've got your student visa, you've done your studies, the next visa routes open to you are, if you'd like to stay in the UK, is a graduate visa, and that is currently 2 years, though from the 1st of January that goes to 18 months. And that then is dependent on having a current student visa, successfully completed an eligible course from a sponsor with an acceptable track record. You will confirm completion of course before applying for the graduate visa, apply in the UK, pay the fee as well as the immigration health surcharge. And again, just a bit on what you can and can't do. So that's the type of stay based on the type of postgraduate. So your bachelor, master's, PhD. You can work in the UK without the need for sponsorship. Study if your course is not eligible for a student visa. And your family can apply to stay as dependents if they joined you on your current student Tier 4 general student visa. You can't extend the graduate visa. That is capped at currently 2 years, will be 18 months. But you can switch to a different visa, e.g. a skilled worker visa. So the next slide gives you a little bit about what that skilled worker visa is. So that is a job offer based visa. You get a certificate of sponsorship, a bit like your confirmation of studies for students, and doing a job on the list of eligible occupations, be paid a minimum salary, and how much depends on the type of work you do. Those requirements then in terms of the sufficient level of English is at B2, other necessary documents, TB, test certificate, ATAS certificates, and so on. Some slightly different certification evidence, different from your study visa. Jobs must be at regulated qualification framework level 6 or above, unless it's on an kind of exemption list. And then what you can or can't do is stay up to 5 years and then extend if your visa expires. You can study, you can bring your family, you can apply to settle permanently. What you can't do is apply for most benefits or change your job/employer unless you update your visa. So that gives you a picture of the journey that you can take post the initial student visa to basically convert your study experience into a graduate next step, and then from that into skilled worker. There is a pathway through those visas that allows you to move from study through to work. And that's that slide. The last slide, I don't think there's, yeah, so it's just on key messages really around one thing I'd say about student applications is making sure that you apply in good time against when your start date is. So once you have your results and all of the documentation's in, that visa application goes in a timely way. We're approaching that season now. July, August, September is the prime student, obviously, and beginning of term build up. So that's what I'd say on timeliness, and just make sure those documents against that criteria, both the educational documents and the financial documents, are meeting the requirements. There's the option of priority visas if the timing gets too tight. But as I say, we've been working at day 8 against a service standard of 15 days. So compared to years when the student intake was rather higher than it currently is, we are turning visas round, in a very timely way at the moment. That is the end. I don't know whether questions are going to come at the end of the session, but
I think so, James.
There.
I think, yeah, amazing. Thank you. And I think we'll probably come back to when I'll speak to the other guests first, but I think we'll probably come back to anything around, student nervousness around the visa process and kind of common mistakes, but we'll park that for now. But that's a really super overview. And I think we want to be clear around the process that students have to go through. And I think the way that you stepped us through the different stages as well that happen after the study visa, we know students are motivated by that. So that is super helpful and something that I think students on the call will really benefit from. So thank you for that overview. Taking things now, when you're at university, there's lots of different help and support that's available, and that happens at institutions all across the UK. But I am going to come to Katie Gordon now. So Katie, you're leading the team at University of Southampton, and you're focused on careers and employability. And I wonder if we could start with you by thinking about, like, when students arrive in the UK, how early should they start thinking about the employability and the careers and that planning and the support that's available at institutions, and specifically Southampton?
It's a really good question. And I would say that it's never too late. So no matter when you start, it's better to do something rather than nothing. So, but having said that, what I would probably say is everybody in this call is doing exactly what I would advise, is actually start preparing before you come to the university of your choice. And that is really because there's so much more that you can engage in if you've done a bit of planning and preparation and finding out. So we actually introduced a package very, very recently, just this year, and you are the first cohort to experience it. So if any of you are thinking of coming to the University of Southampton, it's brand new. It's called Career Advantage. And as part of that, it's a wraparound offer for before you come to the UK, while you're here, and after you go back. And what I wanted to emphasize here is we have a package of webinars called Career Ready Plus. Some of you may have been on some of those already, but they're running throughout the summer. And these are pre-departure webinars to give your career planning a head start. So it's basically about helping you plan if you are thinking about planning to enter the UK job market, how much would you need to do? And to get the most out of your post-study work visa, what is the preparation you need to do? And we're connecting you with alumni and employers before you even arrive in the UK. You'd get to meet our careers team and our new in-country careers team, that's particularly in China and India, and hear about the full careers offering at Southampton. And then when you get to the UK, we're really preparing you fully to develop your employability alongside your studies. So the Career Ready Plus series of webinars, which is, I don't think anyone else is offering it as much as we are, but it's all about supporting you to begin your studies with a career plan already in place. Doesn't mean you can't change your mind, but it's about doing that preparation. You'll get more out of your time while you're in the UK if you do.
Yeah. So I've lost my microphone there, Katie. And I think that's the sort of, when students are, and Steve mentioned this at the start of the call, like doing the research, understanding which institutions offer you support into the areas that you want to go. And often students come to the UK very prepared and very focused on what they want. And this is international students and students from the UK as well. What other kinds of support do you offer to students when they're at your institution, and how easy is it to access that?
Okay, so as I mentioned, the career advantage is, I mean, I have to say, if you're choosing another university, you're not going to get this, but every university will offer something. And the
Yeah.
key is offering bespoke support for international students. We've done a lot of research talking to international students, thinking about what you need and what you've told us that you want. And so masterclasses covering lots of different ways of engaging, from experienced hires, so those of you who've already got work experience, to those who have none. We've built LinkedIn community for sharing visa accessible jobs. We've got weekly international student careers clinics. We've got UK employer engagement, UK employers who are interested in recruiting those sponsored opportunities for employing international students. There's loads of different opportunities, but the key about career advantage is, as I said, before, during, and after. The offer is that when you arrive, we offer you work experience, and we've got a big new offer on skills-based, digitally badged, verified work experience through volunteering, which is all about giving you the skills, or developing the skills that you can develop, the skills that you need for the career you want when you go back home, or whether you're thinking about the UK or going to a third country. We also offer, I think it's about 500 paid internships a year. Now, other universities will offer these in some numbers. We think that's a fairly big offer for a university, which you can, of course, apply for. We link you up with career mentoring. So every international student can access our e-mentoring program. And we've got specific additional offers for particularly India and China. We also, and this I hope will be of particular interest, we have an incredibly strong entrepreneurship team. So if you're thinking of starting a business or going freelance and you want to build up to that point, now you can't start a business while you're on the student visa, so do not forget that. But we can take you right the way up to being ready to launch, whether you want to do that in the UK when you go back home or to a third country. So there's a huge amount of support for whatever you are trying to do or whatever your thinking is. And the University of Southampton, we have really worked on that to ensure that you have that opportunity and should be thinking about the different options of where you're going to go afterwards and what will suit you. If you are going back home, then, as I say, we can provide job coaching and networking remotely. And particularly in addition, in China and India, we have created new in-country careers teams, and we will connect you up, whatever country you're coming from, with the alumni network. But there are additional support for those two particular countries. So there's a whole range of support that you should be able to access. I would be saying, find out about it, look on university websites, see whether that matches what you're looking for. And I hope you'll think that the University of Southampton really would meet your needs, if we've got the course for you, of course.
And I think you have really, it's been evident, I think, to us as a partner of Southampton, how much investment has been made and how much attention has been given to that student feedback around careers and employability. And we know employment and employability are two different things, and both of them the university is taking really seriously and making sure that students feel they're getting that return on investment that they're making as to come to a Russell Group institution. My final question, Katie, for you would be, there's often, I think, nervousness by students to kind of approach these services, even if they're well advertised and well signposted for them. What advice would you give to students that are nervous about kind of coming forward and asking for that help?
I suppose what I would say is, we are all at every university. We are actually not that scary. We're quite friendly and we really want to help. We are funded to help you. So if you don't use us, what's the point of us being here? So I would say, come and talk to us. There's always something that we should be able to do for you. Even if it's just wanting to have a chat about what your career thinking is, we can help you with that. It may be that we're signposting you to something else. There's a whole range of different things we can help you to do. But the big thing I would suggest you do is, there's a lot of different opportunities at any university. You can get involved in volunteering, you can get involved in student societies, you can get involved in paid work, you could just get involved culturally, practice your English, all of these things. But whatever experiences you do, I would say throw yourself into them and try them, but always try and relate that to the skills that you are trying to build for the career that you want. We have a global award-winning program at Southampton called Successful Futures, which is built into your journey. And that helps you to think at every stage. I'm not saying you should obsess about your career the whole time, but I think whenever you're having a new experience, reflecting on what skills you're developing and using our Successful Futures program will help you to be able to describe what you're developing in terms that employers will understand. So it's a very practical way of helping you make the most of your time. But come and talk to us. All University Career Services, very friendly.
Love that. Thank you. And we'll come back to that at the end as well, Katie, just a piece of advice for students. But I think that ties in really well now to our two excellent graduates we've got on the call. And to her, I'm going to come to you first. Welcome to the webinar. Really, really great for us to have relevant and fresh student voice within all of what we're discussing today. So if I take you back to when you were considering coming to the UK and you were considering your study, what were the main factors that influenced that decision for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rachel, and hi everyone. Just checking you guys can hear me all right.
All good.
I'm just going to say first, Katie, I love the passion you have for University of Southampton. So, if you do see an application next year from me, don't be surprised. But regardless, I think in terms of the main factors that influenced my decision to come to the UK and how IDP helped me actually, I did give it a bit of thought on this, and I think there were a few things that came straight up to me. So number one was obviously the distance to my home country, and just geographically speaking, the UK just sits so near to the Middle East, India, etc., which I believe obviously the cohort today is attending from a variety of these countries. Aside from that, in terms of job opportunities, so I had spoken to a lot of people from my school who had come to the UK, studied, had fantastic careers, and at the end of the day, you also have LinkedIn and you can stalk people and you can see what people are doing after their degrees. And I think the variety of careers, the variety of companies, etc., and like how many opportunities were available in the UK was actually a couple of reasons why I selected the UK as opposed to any other countries that I had applied to, having applied to about 4 or 5 countries, all through IDP again. In terms of other things that I looked at actually, and this is something Katie has obviously touched on beautifully actually, is the variety of courses and the support available, and career support. Obviously, it was something that I valued the most whilst I went to university, as well as the education, obviously. But this one was particularly helpful because it just, a lot of people come in there and expect to know how to sit in an interview and answer things, and it's not necessarily always just the most simplest thing to do for certain people. And these particular pieces of support available can make a student's career anyway, so that's pretty helpful. Aside from that, in terms of how IDP helped me, first and foremost, I found my current girlfriend from IDP as well, so that's one of the best things if anyone looking for love over here. But aside from that,
Not a
obviously,
service that we offer everybody. No, but carry on to her. I'm glad it worked for you. Not a promise.
But you'll all get the wedding invites regardless. But making me aware of the courses and job opportunities available outside was something IDP did beautifully. I saw Shamil, who's from IDP, is also on this. So hi, if you can hear me. And he obviously was instrumental about 9 years ago in terms of telling me what is out there. He showed me some of the degree programs in the UK that were affiliated with a variety of companies, as well as universities that had tie-ups with different institutions, which actually was really helpful because that was one of the key reasons why I ended up coming here. I ended up getting a job with the company that was affiliated with my university, and had a fantastic time as well. So all thanks to IDP, because there is often a lot of knowledge out there, and there's a lot of things out there that don't necessarily come to you if you just do a quick Google search. You sometimes need to rely on people's experiences, and if people here in the IDP team do it for a living, they obviously have that level of information they can furnish you with. That was my answers for that.
Love that. Thank you. And I think that's, we want to feel, if what's come across from your answer to her is like, we want to feel like a trusted expert. And I think technology can do some of that, but the human intervention that we're able to put in place is really, I think, second to none for the students. And I think that's something we're really proud of. If you think about your experience overall, I mean, Katie made this really good point before. It's not all about career and career development. Like, tell us about your study experience. How was it when you first got here? Was it what you expected? Did you enjoy it? And what was that like academically and personally for you?
Yeah. It was great actually. That's the word I would use to describe it. Made a lot of friends. Some people I call family today. Aside from that, I never had an instance where I didn't have any support from anyone within the university, whether it was someone of my age, someone who I could relate to personally, or whether it was someone, a bit more senior, someone from an academic background, etc., that I needed to rely on. I think overall, people in the UK really down to earth, sweet, warm, and there was never an incident where you ever feel, you're not included, or you're not part of the broad, bright community out there. In terms of like academic support, mentorship, obviously that I keep touching on, it was fantastic. I think all the universities in the UK, may, have a brilliant focus on these particular aspects of support, which is actually phenomenal because not everyone comes with their families to, foreign countries and things like that, far away from their homelands. And I think the support can quite easily become quite pivotal. Aside from that, hands-on learning at the universities, variety of real-world skills, ability to do jobs and, build skills is brilliant. For example, I did a job at my university and coming from some of the various, obviously there'll be a lot of people that can relate, you come from the Middle East, etc., where not many people at this young age are expected to work, or not many people are out there looking at part-time jobs just because of the fact that you don't need the monetary benefit of it. But actually, it's much more to that because when I came to the UK, I came with a similar mindset. But in fact, I realized like any of these jobs actually was not more for the money; it was more for the skills that it gave me, and
Mm,
it just teaches you how to do a lot of great things. And again, networking, that's what it helps. So overall, a very holistic experience. I think, yeah, it's a place I call home now, and quite clearly because of all of these reasons.
I love that. I love it. And were there any kind of like aha moments in your studies where you thought, I know what I want to do when I leave? And kind of if there were, what got you to the job you've got now?
Yeah, I think it was largely the ability to network with people. Again, I said, we
Mhm.
have us Gen Z have the gift of being able to stock properly. So looking at LinkedIn, etc., I was able to find people who had studied the same course as me, or come from similar backgrounds and things like that. And naturally, as a result of that, I did speak to a lot of people and realized, wow, there's much more to accounting finance than there is that I can see. You just don't need to
Yeah.
become an auditor or a bookkeeper. You can be doing a variety of things and sometimes outside of the same field. So that was one of the things that actually helped me decide what I am doing today. And aside from that, obviously doing a lot of internships, doing a lot of different skills, speaking to a lot of people, you just get to know so much more because yeah, I think there's 100% of information out there, and most humans can somehow only be like limited to that 1%, which they might think is
Yeah.
pretty full on, but it's not.
I love that. I'm sensing your hustle to her. I like it. I think you've got that drive that you want to see in students that they've made the most of their experience, they've gone on and they've kind of really determined what they want to do. We'll come back to a couple more questions in a second, but I do want to bring Shreya in, who's been waiting patiently for her turn. So Shreya, we're really glad to have you on the call as well. Like same question that I asked to her. What made you choose the UK and specifically the course you did at the University of Leeds?
I mean, most of the points have been covered beautifully by Katie at the high. So it's almost like I was thinking out loud. But for my personal experience, I already did an MBA and I was already working, but I wanted to explore the niche of data and where I can go with my career. So I needed a course which would be a short course for a year, but at the same time, there wouldn't be any trade off on the knowledge that I get. What I did from my end is I studied and scrutinized the pedagogies and the modules that all of the universities had to offer. For me specifically, Leeds had this program which covered everything right from the data languages that I could learn and hone my skills on, and of course the business side of it as well, so that fit my profile better. But having said that, there are a lot of universities who offer beautiful blends of different types of courses. So if you can just look at the pedagogy and of course the modules, you can decide. For me it was Leeds since it fit my profile better.
And you came through IDP as well, obviously, Shreya. What was that process like for you in selecting the course and the institution, or were did you come in quite knowing that Leeds was your choice, or did we help you with that?
So I will tell you a very stark point that I noticed with IDP was that and I'll be very transparent and honest with this experience. Many
Absolutely.
of the people that I approached gave a lot of coerced nudge to me in terms of continuously poking and wanting me to affiliate with them in terms of making my applications. Where IDP stood out for me was they provided me the help that I needed, but they did not, for the lack of a better word, irritate me or force me to get into a process. So where IDP helped was I did choose two, three courses by myself, but leads were suggested to me by them. Also,
Yeah.
one more point that I would like to make is I made this decision quite late.
Yeah.
So I started deciding whether I want to go to the UK or not in June, July, and the intake was in September. And like Tahir mentioned, in such situations, you might need the support of someone. Um, Even if you're not doing the processes through them, if they're keeping a check on you saying that we're here to support and you can do everything by yourself, that helps a lot. And IDP in that regard helped me a great deal.
And that's great to hear, and I think that's something we're really proud of as well. When you got to the UK, so when you arrived in Leeds, was the experience what you expected, and what did you find most valuable as an international student studying somewhere like the University of Leeds?
I'll tell you, I have lots to add regarding my valuable experience in the UK. In terms of studying, there was a very big cultural or educational shift for me because the UK values and really, really values work-life balance a lot. So whenever I was doing my course or whenever I was doing an internship or whenever I was working as an analyst over there, it was a very new thing for me. But even if I'm working for 4 hours and providing productivity, I can have the other 2 hours for myself. So what value it added for me was provide that good cultural shift and introduced me to the notion of work life balance. When you're studying, apart from the study part of it, you can learn different courses, you can do part time jobs, you can absolutely take up anything and everything outside the university, in a McDonald's, in a KFC, or you can work with a university as well. So that added a great deal of value. And even if you do not understand those things at that point, in retrospect, all of these things do a lot for you career wise and personally as well.
I could not agree more, Shreya. My university job was McDonald's, so I and a lot of transferable skills out of that job. I've actually never worked harder in my life. How did you then approach the transition from student life to employment after graduation? What was that journey like for you?
I would like to say 2 points about this. And to support that, I would like to give a message to everyone who's here is if you go and ask for help, there are people to provide you help. You just have to be on your toes and ask the questions. So for me, why that helped is I got to do an internship with CBRE as my dissertation project because I could go and ask the right questions. And that's why I got an initial industry experience before my course got over. My professors were there to help me. The CBRE team was there to help me. So the transition was
Hmm.
a little smooth because I could do a 3 months dissertation slash paid internship with CBRE before going into the job. After I applied to jobs, the ones I did not convert, even if I did not convert few jobs, the people taking the interviews were extremely warm. One thing that helped me in my transition was the job that I did with a company. Before
Hmm.
taking me to the intense rounds of interviews and technical questions, they had this one thing called as a chem call, and many companies do it in the UK, which is specific
Hmm.
to UK, by the way. No other country does that. But they have a chem call, which essentially is a chemistry call where they would sit with you and would want to know your personality traits or what things you like or don't like. And that helps them understand if you're a good fit for the company, which I think is very important, and it eases you through the interview process and further if you join the company. So the chemistry call and the dissertation project really helped me transition to the job.
And I think that's a really important observation is it's not always about, I mean, yes, it's absolutely about experience and about being able to show that you'll be able to transition into that workplace from a capability perspective, but it's also about
Mhm.
who you are as a person. And I think what I
Yeah.
feel UK universities are good at is developing people's personality and letting them lean into their strengths, which then would
Absolutely.
hopefully shine through in something like a
Yeah.
chemistry call, which would allow them to kind of show who you are as an individual and what contributions you might make to a workplace. Did you feel able to be your full self and your real self at university here, Shreya? Was that encouraged?
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. And I will say my experience was a unique blend of I was provided with hand holding whenever necessary, but I was also allowed the space to do like carry out the studies in a self-paced manner. So there
Mhm.
was unique blend of all of this, which really helped me, like I mentioned, academically and personally. So I could be my 100%, and I also explored different sides of me which I did not knew existed. So that was the cherry on the cake.
I love that. To her, did you feel the same? Were you able to kind of, do you feel like you developed personality wise when you were at university? Was there any changes that you noticed in yourself by the end of that experience? Or you're
Y-
on, oh, you could-
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think largely sort of similar experience as Shreya, but the main thing was I came in as a very ambitious person, but having no direction, and I left as
yeah,
an ambitious person with direction. I think that's the stark difference between before I came versus when after. And aside from that, I think the biggest personality change was I was always afraid to speak to people outside. I was not the most extroverted person, but I actually somehow became one of those. And yeah, I mean, I have something, a large part of our work requires us to go and develop, new relationships and make new opportunities. And a thing that I follow quite um, strictly now is you've got 5 meals a day, you've got two coffees, a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you're not doing all of them
yeah,
with people trying to build relationships, you're not doing enough. And I think that's brilliant. Obviously, it's all free food and free coffees at the company's expense. But regardless, I think coming from someone who hated and, had a very limited social battery, I think I became one of those people who actually started enjoying it and, finding out so many different things about different people. I think it's brilliant. And the way that that came to fruition is the fact that I was exposed to a variety of, individuals from different backgrounds and, families and different countries they came from, etc. And you just get to learn so much and pick up the nice things that people have to bring and offer.
I love that. And Steve, I suppose an observation maybe for you as a former vice chancellor, president of a university, it must warm your heart to hear the kind of students say, we talk about this a lot when and I've had a job where I've been overseas recruiting students to come to the UK. It's very rewarding to hear Tahir and Shreya talk about how they genuinely found the experience so kind of informative and life-changing. It must be rewarding as a vice chancellor to hear that type of feedback as well.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things obviously we do is we hold alumni reunion events around the world, and I've done must be a couple of hundred of them, and it is overwhelming. It's humbling, actually, Rachel. You get students standing in a line to talk to you, saying, "Coming to whichever university I work for Exeter, but that it's the same across the sector. Coming to Exeter changed my life. I met
Yeah.
we went to one, my wife and I went to one reunion in China where they built a wedding cake for a wedding, and the wedding cake was of the administrative building at Exeter because two people there were getting married. And they said the university had taken their money, so they thought it was a good idea to show us that they really appreciated it by building a wedding cake. Now, I've heard it hundreds of times. And again, please do your research. People find the UK higher education experience overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
I've spoken to tens of thousands of students over the years, and honestly, of course, some things will go wrong, goes wrong anywhere, but
Of course.
overwhelmingly, people have a great time.
I love that. Thank you. I'm just looking at the Q&A and A, and then I'm going to come back to all of our panelists for one final piece of advice from each of you. But there's a couple, James, that maybe one of them's around how far in advance should I apply for my visa? I think that's showing good discipline. And then the other one is about ATAS. I'm not sure whether you're placed to answer that, but I think the question was how long does the ATAS process take? Poor James is on his phone. Are you hearing me, James? Yeah,
Yes,
you're off mute now.
I am.
Perfect. Thank
I am
you.
off mute.
Yeah, did you
Sorry.
hear that question? One was around kind of how far in advance should I apply for a visa, general one, and the second one was what's the ATAS process and what's a usual time frame for that? I'm not sure if you're placed to answer that one.
I don't know on the ATAS one, because that's a slightly different specialist kind of process. On the how far in advance, it can be anything up to 3 months in advance. So, however, I would always encourage as early as possible, because you'll get that much quicker turnaround, and then you'll have the peace of mind of the visa. So a visa can be issued up to 3 months in advance, no more than. So I wouldn't be any more organized than 3 months in advance. But as soon as you've got all the documentation lined up, just get your application in.
Get it in plenty of time. No, that's useful advice. There's quite a few questions in the chat that are specific to individual circumstances. So rather than focus on those, I think I'll take some of the more general ones. And what I would recommend, though, is please do get in touch with your local IDP office. There was one from Tanjalul around Bangladeshi civil engineering, quite specific questions. Tanjalul, I said, get in touch with your local office. We'll absolutely help you guide through some of those. But Rohan, you've been doing a great job in the background answering some of the questions. But if I just pick out another one, can IDP help my visa application? That's absolutely what we do. That's fine. There's comments on self-funding a PhD. I think, again, that's one that's specific to the individual that's asked that question. So they are quite bespoke questions. So what I might do is just come back to the panel, and maybe Steve, I'll start with you, because we're just about 2 minutes from the end of the webinar. The question I've got is, for students that are deciding between the UK and other places, or just deciding whether to accept their UK offer or not, like, what would your final piece of advice be for that? And Steve, will come to you first, then James will come to you.
Well, I think the key thing is to look at the available evidence. I mean, clearly, if I was representing another country, I'd be saying, come to study with us.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, the truth is, the numbers speak for themselves about the quality of the UK. If you talk to someone like IDP, though, we trust IDP completely, and we know that you'll give good advice. I mean, the key point for us is to get advice and to do the research, not to kind of take a kind of simple view. But basically, there are 4 major university systems in the world that recruit large numbers of students. They've each got their pluses and minuses. The key is what works for you. And my guess, Rachel, the honest view is it's the quality of the education you'll get and the way it will change your future life and career. And our evidence is that coming to the UK is very, very strong.
I love that. Thank you, Steve. James, what about you? Any final piece of advice for those on the call? I think Katie, I'll come to you next.
Nothing. Just be as organised as possible. Ask advice in advance. Don't leave it till the last minute, because bearing in mind, all of the world's study applications to the UK are all largely coming in at the same time. So just give yourself as much time as possible. Be organised. And of all the outreach work that we do, we have managed to spread our student season much more evenly. So actually, any time from now onwards, from July onwards, get your application in and we'll be able to turn it around really quickly. So timeliness is probably the biggest suggestion for me.
Love that. Thank you. Katie, what about you from your perspective?
I think fundamentally what I would say is you're thinking you're coming to the UK, but what about afterwards? You need to have a plan for whether you are going to stay in the UK, whether you are going to go home to your home country, or whether you want to go to a third country. What I would say is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have a plan for each of these. And we know that, you may be thinking about more than one. You may have an absolute priority, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. And then look at the universities that you're thinking about. Do they offer you what you need for that plan? As I think I've shown for the University of Southampton, we have a wraparound plan, whether you are staying in the UK, going home, or going to a third country. So I'd obviously say come to us, but whichever universities you're considering, make sure that they have the support that you need for whichever plans that you're intending to do.
That's perfect. Thank you, Katie. Shreya, I won't leave you last this time. I'll come to you, and then to her, I'll come to you at the end. What would be your advice?
I would just say, whoever is skeptical, you should take the leap of faith and just go. That's my personal experience. There is ample of help. There is ample of help available. There are lots of kind people who will help you, and whatever experiences you have will help you shape your career and personality. So you will thank us in retrospect. You should just take the leap of faith and go to the UK. It would be my advice. Yeah.
I love that, and you're living proof of that advice yourself. And Tahir, what about you, the final word?
I'm obviously fully in agreement with everything everyone said, really. So just a final bit is speak to as many people as you can and get their experiences. There are people who've studied in the UK, people who've got jobs over there or returned back to their home countries, etc. Don't rely on just one person's feedback, because they probably, there's a large part of us who would love to complain about things that went wrong, but never talk about the things that we could have done better. And I guess speaking to a variety of people can always tell you exactly what you need to do. And actually, it gives you the right kind of information you need, because a lot of people might say, oh, it's really hard to get a job in the UK, for example. But let's just agree with the fact that the job market overall in the world is competitive. And unless you work hard, you're not going to get it anywhere, be it the UK or Canada, US, etc. So, yeah,
I love that. I love
my
that. Work
advice.
hard. Work hard, be organized, and do your research is what my takeaways from this one are. But that I just want to finish there. I know we're slightly over time, but I want to first of all thank the amazing speakers that have been on the webinar today. You've offered really, really rich insights about the UK study and the many benefits and opportunities that it brings. Secondly, I'd like to thank the IDP staff behind the scenes who helped put the webinar on and promote it. Thank you all for that work. But the biggest thank you is for everyone who's dialed in and given us an hour of your time to watch this. We really appreciate the enthusiasm in the questions. Obviously, like I said, some of them were quite personal. So please do reach out to your local IDP office and we'll offer you free advice and counselling about your options. We are here to help you on your study journey. So let's, keep in touch and let us know how we can help you make those study dreams come true. So thank you, everyone, and goodbye for now.